Several years ago, during the height of the Me Too movement, there were allegations being made on Kevin Spacey for inappropriate behavior to other males within the industry. And one of those cases was adjudicated a couple of years ago in a UK court, which Kevin Spacey was acquitted on. And he says that that should be the end of it, but apparently not, because one of his LA Confidential co-stars, Guy Pearce, has since come out and said that Kevin Spacey was inappropriate with him on the set of LA Confidential. I believe at the time, Guy Pearce would have been in his late 20s. Kevin Spacey would have been in his mid to late 30s, something like that. So even though he's been accused of having targeting younger men, that's not a huge age gap, but still he was, let's say, I'm talking Guy Pearce was pretty youthful looking in that movie. So I can see why, if assuming the other stuff about Kevin Spacey is true, why he would have gone for him during that movie. But Kevin Spacey decided to respond to these allegations when asked about it, basically telling Guy Pearce, quote, "Grow up, you are not a victim," according to this headline from The Hollywood Reporter. Kevin Spacey on Tuesday denied targeting Guy Pearce on the set of 1997's LA Confidential, telling Pearce to grow up and that you are not a victim. And just as a quick aside, if you haven't seen LA Confidential, I actually recommend that movie. It's pretty good, but going back to the article here, Spacey's response came one day after Pearce told the Hollywood Reporter's Award Chatter podcast that Spacey targeted me, no question, while on the set of LA Confidential, also saying he had told his then wife that the only days he felt safe on the set were when co-star Simon Baker was present because Spacey focused on Baker instead. Now, maybe this is me just kind of looking into it and seeing something that's not necessarily there, but I think if Guy Pearce really felt ashamed or bad, I don't know the word, but if he felt like there was something wrong that happened between him and Kevin Spacey on the set of LA Confidential, I don't think he would be making light or making a joke about Simon Baker, basically saying like, "Oh yeah, Kevin Spacey, I don't know, did something to me. I don't know what." He's not specific about it. Let's say he was inappropriate to him, but then make a joke, but he's like, "Well, at least it wasn't as bad as when Simon Baker was on set because he got it worse, or he took a lot of the flack for me." And it's like, I don't know, that just seems like something that one wouldn't do if they really did feel like something happened to him. But again, he says he doesn't necessarily believe himself to be a victim or anything like that, but he does think that there were inappropriate things that did happen on that set. Pearce said the 2017 MeToo movement, in which multiple allegations of misconduct were leveled against Spacey and other prominent men in Hollywood, was a really incredible wake-up call. "I was in London working on something and I heard the reports and I broke down and sobbed and I couldn't stop," Pearce recalled. "I think it really dawned on me the impact that had occurred and how I sort of brushed it off and how I had either shelved it or blocked it out or whatever." And that's what he was saying before. It's like why he didn't bring it up. Following that, he would just kind of think like, "Oh no, it really wasn't that big of a deal. I was just, it was just whatever, some banter going on set or what have you." Again, he's not specific about what Kevin Spacey actually did or anything like that. But he does say, like, looking back on it during the height of the Me Too movement, that, oh, maybe it was inappropriate and I should have done more since then or whatever. Pearce also told The Hollywood Reporter that he was reluctant to use the word victim. "Even though I probably was a victim to a degree, I was certainly not a victim by any means to the extent that other people have been to predators." And yeah, Harvey Weinstein, for instance, main subject of the Me Too movement, was convicted of, let's just say, being a predator towards women. So with that, Pearce isn't saying like, "I'm not a victim like them" or anything like that, but things happen to me that I guess if you're going to say if anything happens to you that makes you a victim, then he's saying like, well, then I guess I'm a victim to that extent. Kevin Spacey was asked to respond to these claims by Guy Pearce, which he says, "We worked together a long time ago," Spacey said, addressing Pearce. "If I did something then that upset you, you could have reached out to me. We could have had that conversation, but instead you've decided to speak to the press, who are now, of course, coming after me because they would like to know what my response is to the things that you said. You really want to know what my response is? Grow up." Spacey went on to recall that Pearce flew to Georgia about a year after LA Confidential just to spend time with me while Spacey filmed Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Uh, Now, we don't know if that's necessarily true or not. Actors visit other actors all the time on sets. It usually doesn't get reported because it's kind of a common thing within the industry. So if he actually did fly to Georgia and spend time with Kevin Spacey a year after it, I mean, that would kind of suggest that maybe Guy Pearce didn't think it was that big of a deal if he's going to spend time with someone voluntarily that he's now accusing of being an abuser to him or anything like that. But I don't know if it's true if he actually did that. Like I said, I looked, I couldn't find any information to suggest it did or didn't happen. We just have Kevin Spacey's word on the matter, but it seems like it's kind of an obscure thing for it not to be true. So I'm thinking it might have actually happened, but this could also be because Guy Pearce did say that he didn't feel necessarily like he was a victim at the time. So maybe he was willing to hang out with him in off hours like that because he was almost in a way trying to justify it, because there's been lots of times where a victim would spend time with their abuser voluntarily. I don't know. I don't know if Stockholm syndrome is a good word for it or anything like that, but maybe that's the case. But one of the funny things about this, because when I was looking into this story right here, I noticed a story from this one from Deadline, July 2018. So a few years ago, kind of during the height of the MeToo movement, when Guy Pearce actually made these allegations against Kevin Spacey. Initially, he says that he regrets saying that Kevin Spacey was a little bit too handsy on the set of LA Confidential. And going back and looking at the podcast or listening to the podcast recently when this came out, I was trying to see, like, did Guy Pearce volunteer this information? Did the interviewer ask about it? Because sometimes that could be important. And it was a little bit of both. They were talking about Guy Pearce's career, talking about LA Confidential, because that was an early American movie that he did. And the interviewer asked him if he had a good experience on the set, because he was talking positively about a lot of his other co-stars in that movie. And then that's when Guy Pearce said, like, oh no, there was problems on the set. And then he brought up the Kevin Spacey thing again, which is this old story right here. So actor Guy Pearce regrets going public with allegations that Kevin Spacey was handsy during filmings of 1997's LA Confidential, and has released a statement to Australian press expressing his second thoughts. I very much understand that it's too sensitive a topic to be brushed off, Pearce said in a statement to the Sydney Morning Herald. I addressed and handled the situation when it took place, hence my regret at making it public now. And that's something that Kevin Spacey said about this new thing that came out, where he's saying, like, if you had a problem with me, you should have told me then instead of going to the press now. And it really does feel like, at least just looking at it, maybe he did do something that could have been considered inappropriate. Guy Pearce called him out on it, saying, like, that's not cool, don't do that. And he's like, okay, sorry, that's it. And that was the end of it. And they were cool after that. And then during the Me Too movement, when a lot of that stuff was coming up, Guy Pearce is like, well, no, I want to talk about this now. I want to be a part of this movement. Or a lot of people were encouraged to kind of come out with their stories during that era. So maybe he felt like he needed to come out and tell his story during that era, even though it was something that was long over with and resolved. They decided to bring it up again, and he expressed some regret afterwards about bringing it up, but still, cat's out of the bag. You can't do anything about it then. And now during this other interview, he decided to bring it up yet again. And I was kind of wondering, like, if this is supposedly old news, like it was dealt with in 1997 and it was dealt with in 2018, why is he talking about it now? And this just me speculating right now, but I think it might have to deal with the fact that right now Guy Pearce is sort of campaigning for an Oscar right now for Best Supporting Actor for The Brutalist. And in Hollywood, Oscars aren't necessarily given to the most deserving people. It's a political campaign within the industry, and you have to basically convince the members to vote for you to give you the Oscar for it. That's why a lot of people think, like, when they see movies that win Best Picture and stuff, like, well, why did this win over this one that everyone loved? It's like, well, because politically within the industry, that's the one that they wanted to win. And I'm just kind of wondering if Guy Pearce is trying to bring this up in order to kind of get points in his favor, so to speak, by saying, like, yeah, I was a Me Too victim too, so that should be for consideration. I don't know if that's the case. It just feels kind of weird that he'd be bringing this up now when it was supposedly resolved. Now, I'm not saying Kevin Spacey is innocent of all this. Far from it. I actually think he is probably guilty of some of the accusations. He probably did do stuff inappropriate on these sets that maybe people were just like, yeah, fine, whatever. Just we're fine. I'm not going to press charges or anything like that, but I don't like you as a result of you behaving this manner. Maybe that's more along the lines of what happened. Cause I think if he actually like did something really bad, like force himself on Guy Pearce, it wouldn't just be resolved like this. And I think he'd be considering himself more of a victim, but I think it was probably just some inappropriate actions that Kevin Spacey did to Guy Pearce. He forgave him after he apologized at the time, didn't really like him, but still was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to hold it over you or really hold a grudge or anything like that. Then during the MeToo movement, when everyone was coming out with their stories, he decided to jump on that bandwagon. And now that he's trying to get an Oscar, he's trying to bring it up again in order to, I don't know, make himself look a little bit more favorable. I don't know if that's the case or anything like that. It just seems like it's kind of strange that this is the time that he would be bringing this up yet again, when it was, even though it was kind of brought out during the interview, it was something that he volunteered. And if he did really regret kind of bringing it up back in 2018, like he said, then it seems strange that he would kind of dust it off right now and bring it out to the open again. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think both of them are lying? Do you think both of them are telling the truth to some extent? I'm curious what other people's thoughts are on this matter. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.